Conti, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give him a hand. I'm just going to have a moment because I know that a song like that needs space to land. And I really want you to allow it to land. I didn't see Tyler sing. My eyes were closed the entire time. I've heard him sing that sound a few times. He and I go back. We've been in sanctuaries together where he established this field, and so I just surrendered to it. And I just invite you to allow that, the reality that that entire song is God singing to you. God used a man named Tyler Conti to give you a specific message that it has for you. The funny thing about that is it's been singing that song since before you found your way into your mother's womb. Before your mother knew that she would birth a child. Before the world knew that a particular and unique presence that all of creation was calling into being would be birthed. The Spirit was singing that song to you. The entire world that we live in spite of the conditions, the appearances, is continually bringing that same message to each and every one of us. Constantly you are being told and reminded of how necessary you are, even when the world is telling you differently. Because that's not who we're supposed to be listening to. We're not here to listen to the world. We're not here to learn about ourselves from the world. And the world that I'm talking about in that language is a world that is about the temporary or the transitional or the short term. You see, we come from eternity. And so while our time here is but brief, if Joel Goldsmith calls it a parenthesis in eternity, sometimes people talk about that parenthesis that you see on a memorial service. From here to here, you've got a date. Sometimes they include the time. But we're here for but a brief stint, and then we go back to eternity. And while that may be hard for us to wrap our mind around, the very real experience of being in this world is something that we awaken to today. We're in community. We're at Soul Center. We have the joy and the freedom to come together to expand our consciousness, to pray, to worship, to answer the call upon our lives. And some of you may be coming in here and aren't certain about a call. You may be coming here and you are clear as a bell about a call. None of that is the point in this moment. What I really want you to know, if you don't know yet, is that there is a space that is available to you that has called you and is only for you. No one can replace you. No one can do what you have been called into existence. No one can do it the way you are called to do it in the particular way that you are called to do it, because you are unique. You are a unique expression of the eternal. Imagine that there's no other planet that can Saturn the way Saturn does. Pluto can try all at once, and it's desperately frustrated because, some days it's a planet and some days it's not. It may feel like we're doing the ring around it. And yet, you, in the particular way that you shine your light, in the particular way that you smile, in the particular way that you respond to the challenges of this world, in the particular way that you listen, in the particular way that you laugh, in the particular way that you sing, in the particular way that you dance, but you tell people you don't dance, but you still dance. All of that is you, and all of you is necessary. Today's topic, if I get around to it, is was quite a riddle for me. 4 P's and an R don't make a word, but they are keys to thriving in our world. 4 P's and an R. It's just like pee-pee, P-P, R. Yeah, that's not a word. Not one in any language that I know. And so there's something that's going to be revealed in this talk today that is just for you. How many of you are interested in thriving? Thriving. How many of you feel like you are currently thriving? Oh, somebody wants more! If you want to thrive a little more, then make a little noise for me. And this is what the journey is about. We've got people who know that they're thriving, and we're also recognizing at the same time that we know that we're thriving, that it is possible to thrive even more. It is possible to get better than this. It is possible to have more than this. It is possible to walk through the world instead of having an attitude of, how can it get any worse? It can be, how can it get better than this? Will you say that for me? How can it get better than this? Well, I've got some keys for you. Say pivot. Pivot. Pause. Pause. Process. Process. Pray. Pray. Repeat. Repeat. Again, pivot. Pivot. Pause. Pause. Process. Process. Pray. Pray. Repeat. Repeat. I'm waiting to see if anybody's going to do it. Pivot. Pivot. Pause. Process. Pray. Repeat. Pivot. I got one! Right? Do it again. Pivot. Pause. Say it like you mean it. Process. Pray. Repeat. Pivot. Pause. Process. Pray. Repeat. The reality is that much of what the challenge that we have in this world has to do with our vision. Take your left hand. Just be aware of it. Just take it. And right now, instead of looking at me, I don't want you to turn your head at all, but I want you to become aware of your peripheral vision. Just become aware of how far and what you can see to the left and what you can see to the right. Just be aware of it. You don't have to do anything. Now, while you're aware of it, I just want you to cover your eye, just with your left hand. Cover your left eye just on the side of your nose, the left side of your nose. And you notice that some of what you can see has disappeared, correct? Mm-hmm. Cover it so that you can't see, so you can't use that eye. Cover it. Just put your hand flat over your eye. There you go. Some of what you could see, you can no longer see. Now switch hands and do the same thing. And it seems so slight, right? It seems very slight. You know, it's just a little difference. You can put your hand down. And much of what we see in this world has everything to do with the perspective that we bring to it. But a lot of times, with all that is going on in the news, with all that is going on in our personal lives, with all that is going on with our family, we don't take the time to look at anything from a different angle. We're constantly looking at it from my perspective. I'm constantly looking at it from how it makes me feel. I'm constantly looking at it from whatever the thoughts, patterns, beliefs, ideas, perspectives that I bring into the world are. I'm constantly doing that. But the thing is, there's always more, right? So it can get better than this. It can get better than the Las Vegas shooting. It can get better than the earthquake in Mexico. It can get better in all of the hurricanes that we're having, even as there's a hurricane headed towards Ireland or Scotland, like some of the craziest things that we've ever had in our world. Just imagine, it can get better than this. And the reality is, it is already better than this. So the first P is what? My favorite part is sometimes when I do stuff like that and people's mouths open and I'm not really sure. I'm not sure. So it's pivot. Pivot. The first thing that you're going to do when you want to thrive more is to pivot. Say pivot. Pivot. You're going to change. A pivot doesn't require a great move of God on my behalf. A pivot doesn't require me to realize that everything is a miracle. I didn't say that pivot doesn't require a miracle. What I want you to hear is that everything is a miracle. The idea that any one thing in all of existence happens is a miracle, because you have to look and see all that was required for any moment, for any experience, for any significant point or insignificant point in whatever timeline you look at. In order for any of that to happen, there must be millions of events that happen in a particular sequence and way for you to have it. So what do? We pivot. And we take the opportunity when we look at something as tragic and as painful and as moving as what is happening in Puerto Rico right now, as what is happening up in Northern California, or just over the hills from here with all the fire and devastation. We really have to have an awareness that I have a particular feeling or experience of this moment. In this moment, I'm going to pivot. I'm not turning away from it. I'm not turning my back on it. I want to pivot just to see if I can see this from a different angle. I'm going to make myself available to a piece of information, an awareness of this thing from a different angle, and I'm going to do it consciously. So consciously, I pivot. So when I pivot, it's not just a reflex. It's not running away. It's intentional. I'm clear that when I pivot, that I'm looking for something that I can't see right now. I'm looking for something that may be available for me, because I know that it can be better than this, right? I know that. So I'm starting from a place where I know that it can be better than this. I know that it already is better than this. So I'm taking the opportunity to pivot. And so when I pivot, I'm now available to something, and I'm also looking, and I'm also interested, and I'm also giving myself consciously and intentionally to the practice of becoming aware of something that is available to me that I may not have had available to me at the other position. Now, we can pivot within ourselves. It's not really a physical thing. The physical movement is an illustration of what we're doing internally. So instead of viewing something necessarily as a man, Harvey Weinstein situation and all that is going on, instead of me looking at it as a man, my pivot might be to look at it not as a woman, but as a girl. Because there's information that's coming to girls that whole story is teaching and sharing with them. I might look at it as woman. I might look at it as a person in the movie industry. I might look at it from an actor or an actress. I might look at it even from Harvey's position, because I am interested in what is available to me that I may not be intentionally taking on. And this is how we get through the very difficult, the very painful, the very challenging, the impossible situations in life. We have to choose to take it on. You have to pivot. But here's the thing. When you pivot, I don't want you to rush in and suddenly start assuming that you can collect all the data and the information in this moment. The second P is pause. Say pause. Pause. After we pivot, what do? Pause. We just pause. And we've all pressed pause on a tape, a movie, a situation, sometimes a conversation, sometimes a relationship. We put things on pause. And what we do when we press pause is we pause all of the part of us that wants to assume that it knows what this next view is. We pause and we allow it to reveal itself to us. We let go of our assumptions. We let go of the ability that we think we have to predict things, and yet we still can't get the weather predictions right. So we're trying to feel like we know what this next view is. So we pivot and then we pause and we allow it to reveal itself. Just because we think that we see something from this new view that we have seen before doesn't mean it's the same thing. We know that there are twins in the world, and we know that if we see a pair of twins, we might think that we're looking at the same person, and many of us have met twins. Matter of fact, giving love to Marcus and Mario today. It's two of my friends. It happens to be their birthday, twins. That's probably why they're coming up in my consciousness. And the reality is that they are not the same. even as much as they may have looked alike when they were babies, even as much as they may work out and develop muscles, and that's kind of one of the things that they do in the world, they look alike, but they're not the same. So if I were to treat Mario like Marcus, Marcus doesn't get treated the way he desires to be treated. So we make ourselves aware of this new perspective that we have pivoted to and allow it to reveal itself to us. The next thing is the thing, though. After we pivot, say pivot. Pivot. After we pause, say pause. Pause. What do? Process. What is your process? How do you become aware of what you're feeling, of what you're experiencing? How do you become aware of how to take on the things that you see? Some people just shut off the news. They can't deal with it. I don't watch the news. Some people don't watch TV. They call it an idiot box. They project all of whatever their feelings are on this piece of technology, and all the jobs and all the creative people and all the stuff that comes out of it is placed in a box that they've called the idiot box, and they slide it out the door, right? And yet, Mr. Rogers was on TV on that idiot box. Quite a lovely man. I mean, there's just so many good things that can be experienced through the right use of technology, right? And so, without necessarily deciding that this is a particular thing, I'm going to open and avail myself to it, but I have to have a process. Each of us must develop our own process of taking things in. I'll invite you to take on a process that allows you to really be with your feelings and emotions. Because your feelings and emotions are so key. They are information receptors, just like the nerves in your fingers and in your joints and the ones that tell you not to bend down too fast. They are giving you information so that you don't hurt yourself in your body, right? Imagine if you had strained your knee and you did not have the nerves in your knee to tell you that something was wrong. So constantly you would be grinding the bone of your body on your knee, and that eventually would destroy your knee. But you don't know that's happening because you don't receive the information through your nervous system. Your emotions are the same, but you must become acquainted with your emotions, because many of us have felt things on one day and a few days later we felt a little differently. Sometimes when faced with a moment of shock and awe and trauma, we short circuit and our emotions go wild, and we have a reaction to a person or a thing that really isn't the truth of who we are, but it reveals something within us. So it's important that we do not identify ourselves as our emotions. We are not our emotions. We have emotions. We do not identify ourselves and project ourselves into the world as a particular way or as a particular experience by our emotions. So it's important that if you, in your process, that you become aware in the pause as you enter into the process of what's going on within me.